My next guest is Noah Sebastian from Bad Omens, and it's always a pleasure to see you. How are you holding up? You've had a relatively crazy time these days.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good actually. This is one of the most fun tours we've done so far because we actually have some pretty good friends of ours on this tour in the band Era who we've known for a long time. I actually live with Jesse Cash, the guitarist as well. And yeah, it's just sometimes tours take a little while to get used to each other, but everyone already knows each other and is good friends. And then Animate knows Era really well, so there's already just like a super nice comfortability with everyone. So the tour just kicked off with great vibes.
The obvious question these days would be, why do you think the band is doing so well and resonating so strongly, particularly live? You guys certainly know how to play, but there seems to be a fervor out there right now that I wonder if you understand it or can explain it.
It's it's a lot of things, I think, honestly. Like I feel like I'm always trying to dissect like just the every aspect of the band and like the culture surrounding our band now, which is crazy that it feels like we even have our own like little culture and network and online community. But it kind of feels like the perfect storm, like we put out a really great album and like we worked very hard on like the marketing aspect and the visuals and everything like that. And then on top of that, we put a ton of work and a ton of money as well into our live show to make it like very exciting and make the shows fun and try to feel different. And yeah, we all just try really hard at everything we do. Like my voice alone, like I've like kind of tried to turn my body into like an athlete almost. Like I'm exercising all the time, not because it's fun, like but because I found out like it really improved my performance live a couple of years ago when I started getting more into fitness and stuff and like jujitsu and stuff like that. And yeah, it just feels like just everything's just kind of falling into place correctly, and we're all like making the right moves, and like also we're just very professional as well, which I think helps a lot. Like we are probably the most boring band on tour, but it helps because everyone wakes up and is in a good mood every morning and sleeps well and everything. So yeah, I think it's just a combination of hard work, like great music, and a great support system, both from the band and our team and from our fan base.
You strike me as someone who might be an overthinker.
Absolutely. Yeah. I that's kind of like one of my strengths and weaknesses is like too much attention to detail. And I feel like I'm just like I kind of feel like an architect sometimes when it comes to the band because I'm just like so hands-on with so much, and it's like it's growing to a point that I can't be like that with everything anymore. And that's like something I think I'm currently struggling with letting go of, is like letting go of some responsibility and just like the need to like nitpick everything and just trust the people that are doing those jobs as like their main job. And yeah, it's also made the touring experience better, like trying to learn how to pass some of that stuff off and not just overthink everything. But you're right, that's a very astute observation.
How then do you deal with folks who are doing things that you used to handle yourselves when the band was much smaller? And I would think there's, the tour production and there's artwork for t-shirt. I mean, there's a million things for a band. How do
Mhm.
you find a happy medium to giving some direction, but not being, on the phone 24/7 trying to direct?
Um, I think the big part of it is just finding people that we really trust and like working with consistently, and if they're not people that we know very well personally, it's someone that people we do trust can vouch for. When it comes to like merch printing and merch designs and tour production, all that stuff. Like between me and our tour manager and our buddy Davis, who is basically the band's creative director when it comes to our online merch store, uh, the three of us plus management really handle all that stuff and like are good at bouncing it around with each other. And now thankfully it's at a point where they can just like text me like, three versions of a mock-up or something, and I can be like, let's do this one, and then we'll talk about it in text, and it's like easy and it's done versus like, having to schedule a Zoom or something. Like it's in really good hands right now, which is great because not only are they talented people that we, work with, but they're like we're all good friends. So it's a really fun work environment as well.
Do you remember your first band t-shirt? And actually make it a two-parter. Do you remember the first band t-shirt you ever got of somebody else? And do you remember the first t-shirt ever for your own music?
I think the first band shirt I ever had was Seosin. I can't remember. It was either Seosin or Red Jumpsuit Apparatus. I had this like way too small yellow red jumpsuit apparatus shirt from Hot Topic that I remember to this day when I was like 13, I think. Um, and then our first shirt, again, it's crazy how full circle it is. But the guy Davis I was just talking about that does all our merch designs with us, he designed our very first shirt back in like Richmond before we were ever in like a band or played a show. And for some reason, I was like, we need merch, even though we don't even have fans or music online. And I think Nick's sister, Nick, our bass player, his sister still has that shirt to this day. It was before our band name was even Bad Omens, and it was called Man versus Self. So we always talk about that all the time whenever like we have like a team meeting or lunch or something, and we talk about how like Davis made the first shirt ever, and I don't know, it's really cool how it's kind of grown from such a like grassroots kind of start and into such a huge thing, and that it's still like managed to remain in the family, so to speak, you know.
Do you still get excited when you see a new T-shirt design, or when you go past the merch stand at sound check and there's all this cool stuff? Because I know it's a thrill early on, but it can sometimes become same old for some folks. Are you still kind of excited about things like that?
Oh, so excited. That's one of
Yeah.
my favorite things. Like, I mean, our merch store is like a huge staple at this point in our band, and there's like jokes about like how it's compared to the Hunger Games because it sells out all the time. And you know, we like really hype them up. Like we don't just drop merch. We'll like do like a teaser and start like promoting it until like a day and a time that it's going live. So there's like a lot of anticipation with it, almost like dropping a song every time we do merch. And it's a lot of fun because I really love our designs. I think we have really good designs, and that's why we work with the same people all the time. And I love like being able to still be involved with that. And also not to mention, I mean, just the financial aspect. I mean, merch is like the main income for bands these days, especially touring. And you know, I feel like you have to be involved and invested in that part of your band to like expand as a business and grow as a business. So that's like one thing I don't feel like any band should neglect or just like kind of pawn off on someone that's just trying to like collect a paycheck. You know, it's something you should put time and energy in. And that's what we did with our store. And that's why like, you know, the merch drops sell out all the time. And we're like actively trying to keep up with how much demand there is. Cause every merch drop, there's hundreds, if not thousands of like really angry people that are like, I had it in my cart. And by the time I hit checkout, it was gone. And like, you know, we're trying to remedy that at all times.
Is there anything that you would like to have designed for the band that you haven't been able to do yet? Decoder rings or hovercraft? Is there anything like really kind of out there that would be super cool that's just a little bit difficult at this point?
I know we were talking about like custom katanas at one point, like swords, like having like a laser engraved like symbols on like a katana, which seems like very expensive and unnecessary. Slides is something I think that's in production right now that we've never released, but for summertime we want to do Bad Omens like beach slides. Maybe like backpack accessories, just stuff like that. Like we want to branch out and have like more branded stuff that you can carry your merch in or go to a show with that's like still Bad Omens branded that you can buy merch and put in, or I don't know, nothing crazy besides the swords.
I would be curious to hear about shows over in Europe, particularly in the UK and maybe even specifically London, because I think the UK is a country that certainly has a bit of its music sort of baked into the DNA of your band. So I would think that's almost like a pilgrimage for you to go there and play. Tell me about reactions over there. Tell me about touring over there. Tell me about specific moments, anything you can remember.
Yeah, Europe and the UK especially was like way under the demand because we were just there a few months ago.
No.
And I mean, London, for example, just because of like what options were available for upgrades, which were none, aside from like, I don't know, like a arena or stadium or something, I can't remember, but like we had to play at the Dome 3 nights in a row, which is like a 600 cap, I think. Instead of just playing a 2,000 cap room or a 1,500 cap room, we played
Yeah.
there 3 nights in a row. And from my understanding, there was still like 1,000 people that wanted tickets. So stuff like that happened throughout the whole tour. And now, like, whatever we do next in Europe, as far as the headliner goes, we have to like, I think we have to be ambitious with the cap sizes to make sure that we're getting everyone in the room that wants to be there in every city because it's like releasing music. It's like you're always, you know, behind what your status, like your level will be at that point when that happens, you know. So like Just Pretend started having radio success, and like then the TikTok thing after like all these tours were booked. So it's, you know, especially with the pandemic kind of still being fresh off the end of the pandemic, like the availability and stuff for rooms and upgrades is much more limited than I feel like it used to be. So we're constantly trying to like play catch up with the band's growing success, which is like kind of just snowballing every day while we're like trying to make plans in the future. So now I think that's one thing we're focusing on, is trying to like accommodate for where we think we'll be when a plan we're making takes place versus like where we currently are. So if we think we're going to be worth, you know, 500 to 1,000 more tickets in a city this time next year, we're going to try to book with that anticipation versus like what can we sell now, because it's clear that like the band is still growing every day and getting new fans, so we need to like have the foresight to accommodate for that in the future.
Tell me a little bit, if you would, how it feels on stage, and maybe we can use those gigs at the Dome specifically,
Mhm.
where you're playing a much smaller place than you should, and that sometimes creates incredible energy, sometimes even a little bit too much energy, and it can seem a little chaotic on stage. Tell me what it's like from your viewpoint for situations like that.
I've noticed it more and more, especially on this tour, because the support on this tour are two like pretty heavy bands.
Mm.
Like we have heavy moments and heavy songs, but we're by no means like a deathcore band or like a mosh crowd kill like band, you know. And it's very interesting coming from a background and a music scene where like moshing and crowd surfing and all that stuff is like such a deep rooted part of like the culture. And now with our band, I feel like we have like a very split fan base now. Like we have a whole different generation of fans that are like really into our music, especially from platforms like TikTok and more like internet based, like I guess marketing. And then we have like, you know, classic metalcore fans that have been familiar with like the metalcore scene and the mosh scene or whatever for a long time, and that come from those like backgrounds of like music scenes. And putting them in a room together, sometimes I definitely see like the friction it creates, because there's like a pocket of people in the room that aren't like aware of like those types of shows and like how like the etiquette and just how like crazy it can get with like, you know, moshing and crowd surfing. And then there's people that like are fully aware of that, that know like if I don't want to be in that situation, I should stand on the sides or in the back, but like everyone wants to be at the front. So it's like constantly like I feel like I'm trying to like mitigate having a crazy, fun, like exciting, high energy show with like people that are like visibly uncomfortable. And, you know, I don't want anyone to be uncomfortable with the show, but at the same time, it's like you don't have to be at the front. You know, like I feel like you can't always have both. If there's like a crazy night where a bunch of people are crowd surfing and you don't want to lose your spot at the front, but you also like don't want to like worry about catching crowd surfers, like you kind of have to pick one, you know, because I can't control everybody. That's security's job. So it's like you said, in those small rooms, in those small environments where we're playing a venue that's probably too small for us. It's definitely stressful trying to like pay attention to my performance while also like keeping an eye on everyone to make sure everyone's like safe and taking care of each other. Um, and yeah, I think it's just everyone's. I've like seen a lot of people talk about how like they come to Bad Omens shows and it's like a different environment than they're used to at like rock and metal shows, because it's just such a new type of like fan base. And I think that's awesome. Like that's kind of, I've talked about this in interviews before, but that's kind of the point with what we're doing and with this band, is I want to expand the horizons musically of people that aren't familiar with heavy music, and I want to bring them into like that music culture. And then I want to get people that only like heavy rock music to check out other stuff that's outside of that, you know, like hip hop or dark pop or whatever, bedroom pop. And I want to like kind of bridge that gap to help bring alternative music back into the mainstream again, like the way that it was in the early 2000s when like Korn and Limp Bizkit and stuff and Linkin Park were like the biggest thing in music. And I think that that's like happening right now across the board with multiple artists. But it's definitely interesting putting those different types of fan bases in a room together and playing violent, loud, fast music sometimes.
With the diversity of the crowd therein, tell me how that may or may not affect how you build a set list and pace the set for the night.
That actually doesn't really affect that. When I make the set, I try to just make it really cool and interesting. I'm like really big on intros. And because we've been playing these songs for so long now, for like 2 years, and we've been touring so much, it gets boring for us. So I've been like changing the songs and like adding time to them, or like changing the structure, or making the song start at a different point, just doing things to make it both fun and exciting again for us as people that have played them hundreds of times, if not thousands at this point, and then also exciting for people that have seen us live multiple times in the past year or two. So really, when I'm making the set, I'm just trying to make like cool, new, exciting things. Like we play this song "Bad Decisions" on this tour for the first time, and it ended up being like just close enough in key and tempo to Billie Eilish's song "Bad Guy." So I've been like dropping samples from that in there and like chopping them up, and like just doing like fun stuff that you can only really experience if you come see us live. And yeah, I don't know. I just try to make it different and exciting every tour.
You hit on something I always find terribly interesting. I always love to sort of look at it's the same thing with the sequence of an album. I love to see how a set list is sequenced, but it's the opening song. I always, what do they open with? What do they open with? Because there's a certain art to getting out of the box. Now, what are some of the parameters that go in to what you feel makes a great opening song?
We actually switched it up on this one for the pretty much the past year and a half. We either opened with "The Death of Peace of Mind," which is like a gradual build. It starts really
Mm.
slow and small, and then it kind of builds up and it like hits heavy at the end, which makes sense for an intro. And then the first two Concrete Jungle tours here and in Europe, we opened with Concrete Jungle. And again, that's kind of the same crescendo that Death to Peace of Mind has, where it starts slow and quiet and small, and then it just builds, and then like the set opens up. And with this one, we wanted to like, I don't know, we wanted to keep the energy going, especially because the two bands before us are like pretty heavy and like,
Mm.
fast and stuff, and not really that type of vibe. And also, we just wanted to like come out of the gate a little more like in your face and fun. So we're opening with Artificial Suicide on this tour, which everyone seems to really like. Even like our crew, they're like, it's so sick that like you're opening with that. It makes the show just immediately pop off. So that's like kind of setting the tone for the set right at the start when you come out, and it's just like heavy riff, bouncy, confetti, all that stuff. And yeah, that's another song, for example, that I chopped up and like restructured, and we made it like just kick in with like the heaviest riff in the song, and it's got a really fun energy to it, and I think that sets the tone for the whole set. And then like I like to have like kind of interlude moments in the set, and with this one, Bad Decisions and Miracle are kind of in the middle. And on our album, Miracle's the last track. So I feel like for a lot of people that are pretty well versed in our track list on the record, it kind of feels like the end of the show. And really, it's just like the end of the middle. So it's like a
Mm.
cool halfway point where you get this like in your face start, and you get a couple hits, and you get like some slow jams, and then like an outro feeling. And then it's like fast song again. We're only halfway done. Let's wake back up. So it's like a set in two parts almost, and it's really fun. I think it's my favorite set so far we've done.
You mentioned the death of peace of mind in there, which in my own opinion, I can't say it's like the best of your recent songs. I think it's probably my favorite because I think the song encapsulates the shit everybody's been living through the last several years.
Yeah.
Do you suppose it's lyrics like that and thoughts like that that explain why you guys are resonating so well with folks?
I think it plays a role for sure. I mean, a big part of this band is like self-awareness and like almost social commentary. And sometimes I feel like our band, with like how wild the internet gets and like our fan base gets, sometimes like it's like a social experiment almost, at least for me, because I find that stuff interesting. Like I find like philosophy interesting and stuff like that. And as like a you know deep existential thinker at times, I like to see like how our band's influence on like culture kind of translates that type of like thought process, and like gets me kind of like gets the wheels turning, and that like further inspires ideas for the live show. Like I'll just come up with things for the live show that I think is really fun, or like makes people question stuff. Like last night, I couldn't remember if we had played the venue before, and someone told me that we hadn't, and I was like, I'm gonna see if everyone just cheers to cheer, or if they're actually listening. And I was like, who here saw us like when we played here last time at this venue? And a couple people were like, woo! And I was like, we never played here. That never happened. They're like, I got you. Like, it's a mean trick for sure, but
Yeah.
because sometimes maybe they just didn't want it to be awkward and just silence. But I don't know, there's stuff like that where I just like this band is always making me think, about like things beyond just music, and I think that's really cool. Like it's like I'm learning more about myself and like just my experience here as a human being, like through music, beyond just music, and I think that's like pretty cool, fun part about being in like a band.
I'll bet there's some nights where you can't shut your brain off and you're in that bunk just in. What
Dude, every
what
night, every night.
what are the types of things that keep you awake in your brain?
Well, the hardest part is like when you're headlining, you play last, so you play latest in the day, and then it's like you have this adrenaline rush from the show because it's just like exciting, and everyone,
Now I can't go to
everyone has
sleep. Yeah.
that. Yeah, the fans have it, we have it, and that's like the hardest part to turn off. But after the show, like I try to just wind down and like think about the show, think about like things I said or like how I could improve the show, or like one of my biggest like weak points as a front man has always been like stage banner. Like like sometimes I just trip over my words, or I'll have like a too big of a lisp or something. Like I don't know, like I just always feel like I'm saying something stupid up there. And lately I've been trying to like embrace that and stop being so serious as we used to be, because we used to be just shrouded in mystery and like darkness at all times. And I realized that like that's the character, like sometimes people think if you're on stage and you're funny or you're joking around or something, like that's a bit, and sometimes it is. But as someone that's like naturally pretty serious and like takes the band serious, I kind of realized that I was like doing that too far when it came to the stage performance, and like it was making me take the performance aspect too serious, to the point that I would like really beat myself up the rest of the night if I like didn't hit the one note I really wanted to hit, or like something felt weird with my voice in a certain part. And it was kind of like, I don't want to say ruining the tour experience for me, but it definitely was making it way less fun than it could and should be, being in like a newfound like successful band, like selling out tours. Like it's supposed to be fun, and I've been trying to just keep my like brain in that space where I'm like not taking it so serious, and I'm not like worried about being perfect every night, because like I think that's just virtually impossible. And in approaching it that way, it's actually helped me be better, I think, because when you're overthinking, it's like you're kind of getting your own head about it, and that's when you start messing up, and like it doesn't feel natural. So I think I just kind of fell too hard into like the character that was me on stage, me as a front man, and like a very serious, dramatic, cinematic band. Like there was definitely like a character element to it that we still have for sure. Like it's not goofy now by any means, but there's just moments where I try to like take a step back and make it lighthearted and like kind of shatter the illusion a little bit and remind people that we're just regular guys and that we like to goof around. And like the other night, I threw signed Uncrustables into the audience. Like, like just trying to have more fun now and just make it less serious, because it was getting too serious in my head, and I had to remember that it's just a band and it's just live music and we're just having fun, and it's like how it started.
You strike me as a reader, someone who likes to get lost with books. Is that the case?
I do, but it's weird. I go through like phases. Like I'll read like 5 books in 2 months, and then I won't read a book for like a few months. So it kind of depends like where I'm at. But I do really enjoy reading, and I'm big into sounds kind of corny, but like Eckhart Tolle, like that type of writing. That's like self-healing, like motivational, like A New Earth is one of my favorite books. Um, right now I'm reading an Alex Garland book called The Beach. He's like a weird writer that does a lot of weird like horror movies and stuff. But yeah, no, I definitely for sure like enjoy reading.
Do you find the more time you spend staring at your phone, the harder it is for your brain to rewire itself to read a book?
Yeah, for sure. Because like it's like working out. Like the phone is so much more exciting and entertaining than reading a book. Like you've got sight, sound, like it's like a movie. But then there's times where I don't know, reading to me has become like more of like a meditative practice almost, because it's such a like one thing to focus on versus like scrolling through a social media app. And I think it's like way better for like your brain to just sit quietly and read a book. I also try to meditate a lot now. I got this app for it where like even just once a day I try to meditate for like 5 minutes and just kind of ground myself from my thoughts, because like as you observed, I do like overthink a lot and think a lot all the time, and like just really detail oriented. So like I try to just find time in the day to take 5 to 10 minutes to just not think about anything. And I think it's good. It's like a computer reset almost, like if your computer's starting to overheat.
Have you ever tried yoga?
No, I've heard that that's good. I've wanted to try it. I do jujitsu, and that feels like somewhat comparable. Like that's also another thing I enjoy doing because it's just you're on the task at hand, trying not
Mm.
to get choked. Like, it's pretty straightforward and just it's nice to just do something physical and it feels like almost primal, like that we as humans are kind of probably designed to do in the first place. It's just eat food and sleep and interact with one another and whatever.
Well, Noah, I always enjoy interacting with you. It's interesting to talk art and life with you, and I'll look forward to seeing you on this run.
Yeah, it's great talking to you, man. Thanks so much.